Hi everyone, welcome to a very special video. Today I'm sharing a recipe video for one of the most popular Indian recipes on my blog as well as my regional language YouTube channel. We're making Thalassery chicken biryani. Thalassery is a coastal town in the Malabar region of Kerala, India. Although there are many varieties of the Malabar biryani, this Thalassery biryani is one of the most popular and the most beloved. This is a traditional, authentic recipe for Thalassery biryani, and if you are a biryani lover, you're going to love this Malabar-style biryani. I've linked to the detailed recipe down below as well as the regional language video. As with many biryanis, don't let the number of ingredients deter you. They are mostly spices and are repeated in the different sections of the list of ingredients. I've laid out this recipe in great detail with all the tips so that you can make a perfect biryani right at home. So let's take a look at the ingredients. You need 1 to 1 1/4 kilograms of fresh chicken, skin removed and cut into medium to large sized pieces, rinsed thoroughly and drained. You also need half a cup of garlic cloves, and for authenticity, try to use the smaller Indian garlic cloves. We also need half a cup of fresh ginger, as well as green chilies to taste. I'm using 5 to 8 small hot green chilies here. So most of the heat in this biryani comes from the green chilies, so those who like it spicier can add more green chilies. Next, one of the most important ingredients in any biryani, we need 2 cups of sliced onions as well as 2 cups of extremely finely sliced onions. That's for frying later. These are the whole spices required for making the Thalassery biryani masala spice mix, and these are the whole spices required for making the rice. I'll mention the amounts of each ingredient as I go. Next, we need 3 to 4 tablespoons of dalda, which is a brand of hydrogenated vegetable cooking oil, very popular in South Asia and regularly used in the authentic Thalassery biryani. We also need pure ghee, 2 tablespoons for the masala and 2 tablespoons for the rice. Now, if you don't have the dalda mentioned earlier for this recipe, you can just use all ghee. Moving along, we have 2 large, ripe but firm, juicy tomatoes. And you need half to 3/4 of a teaspoon of turmeric powder as well as salt crystals. Salt crystals are preferred for this recipe, 1 teaspoon for the masala and 2 teaspoons for the rice. Next, you need a large handful of fresh coriander or cilantro and a large handful of fresh mint. Make sure the herbs are really fresh. You need 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed lime juice, as well as 3 tablespoons of thick-set yogurt. Now here we're taking a look at the biryani rice used for making Thalassery biryani. Unlike basmati, which is usually used for most of the other biryanis, the Thalassery biryani uses a small grain fragrant rice known as kaima. This is local to the region and it is a super fragrant rice which adds to that delicious aroma in the traditional Thalassery biryani. If you can't find it, you can always use basmati, but the authentic recipe does require to use kaima. Next, for the fried garnish that goes on top of the prepared biryani, you need a large handful of raw cashew nuts, as well as a large handful of raisins or sultanas. I usually use the golden sultanas. I didn't have them today, so I'm using the darker raisins. First, you need to soak them for a while, and then drain them thoroughly on kitchen paper towel. This is to remove any impurities before frying them. So to make the fried garnish, you will need a sufficient amount of oil to fry the fried onions as well as the cashews and raisins. And we also need a good quality rose water along with 1/8 of a teaspoon of turmeric. This is to add scent and color to the rice. So the first step, we're going to fry the finely sliced onions. These onions were sliced using a mandolin slicer. So we're heating up the oil in a heavy based wok like this. I'm using cast iron wok. And using a mandolin slicer ensures that you get evenly sliced thin onions, which is necessary for making this. The frying of the onions is an art and is an extremely important step in the making of the biryani. You want to watch it really well. And in the beginning, it may seem like the color is not changing, but after a while, once a couple of them start turning golden brown, you want to keep a close watch on it because it can change from golden to burnt in a matter of seconds. Once it starts getting golden, you want to keep flipping it. And when it starts getting a deeper brown, you can start to remove from the oil before it goes too dark. And while you're frying, keep the heat on moderate and keep flipping the onions as they get darker and darker in color. These golden fried onions are going to be the base of the flavor and aroma of your biryani, layered throughout the rice and the masala. A tip to keeping them crispy without going soggy is to spread them over a spider strainer instead of putting them on kitchen paper towel. Make sure you spread them out. And after a while, you'll notice that they have become nice and crisp. And in the same oil, we want to add our golden sultanas or raisins and fry them till they puff up nicely, and then strain them from the oil and set aside. And next, we'll add the cashew nuts and fry these as well till they achieve a nice light golden color, and quickly strain them from the oil and set them aside. So that's the fried garnish, and next we can prepare the special Thalassery biryani spice mix. You'll need the following whole spices: 3 green cardamom pods, 3 cloves, and 2 small sticks of cinnamon. You want to bruise the green cardamom slightly to expose the seeds. Next we have 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds, a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin seeds, and a 1/4 teaspoon of caraway seeds. 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns, a 1/4 teaspoon of mace, and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. We're using the whole spices here. You will also need 2 very mild dried red chilies, 1 teaspoon of white poppy seeds known as couscous, and a single segment of star anise. Add all the whole spices except the white poppy seeds, the dried red chilies, and the star anise to a small dry pan. Toast on a medium heat, stirring till the spices smell aromatic and are crackling well. At this stage, add the white poppy seeds followed by the dried chilies and star anise. Stir, and when these spices smell toasted as well, remove from heat. Grind these toasted spices in a spice grinder to a powder and set aside. Another pro tip is to try and use the smaller cloves of garlic when you're making this biryani. The smaller Indian cloves provide a greater depth of flavor and a slight sweetness that is not the same with the larger cloves of garlic. So we're going to crush the garlic cloves, the ginger, as well as the fresh green chilies together using a pestle and mortar. Painstakingly crushing these ingredients on stone rather than using a grinder gives you that authentic traditional flavor. It just isn't the same if you use a modern food processor. So when you're using this type of pestle and mortar, a pro tip is to rest your wrist against the edge of the mortar here, and then hold the pestle at the base rather than at the top end, and then easily crush the ingredients while resting your wrist. This allows you to apply more weight of the pestle onto the ingredients without applying the pressure on your wrist when you need to do a large batch like this. And you'll find the job is made much easier and you get a nice crushed paste. Make sure it's uniformly crushed, all the green chilies, the garlic, and the ginger. Once those onions we fried up earlier have cooled down a bit, we're going to crush half of this. This is added to the chicken masala to add flavor to the chicken. Towards the northern parts of India, this is known as the Bista, but in the Malabar region, it's known as Bista. So we've taken half of it and crushed it, as you can see, with our hands. Reserve the rest for layering and garnish later. Now we can make the chicken masala for the Thalassery biryani. For this, you need a heavy base pot and add the dalda to this and melt it. If you're not using dalda, you can replace this with ghee or clarified butter. Add the sliced onions and saute till slightly softened. When the onions have worked up a sweat and have softened like this, we can add the crushed paste of ginger, garlic, and green chilies. Continue to saute while stirring till the raw aroma of the ginger and garlic is completely gone. And then we can add our rinsed and drained chicken. These chicken pieces were scrubbed with a little bit of sea salt, then rinsed and drained thoroughly. Increase the heat and toss these chicken pieces really well to coat them in the sautéed ingredients. Once this chicken has lost the pink color and has turned opaque and is thoroughly coated with the ingredients, we can add the prepared Thalassery biryani masala spice mix that we prepared earlier. Add about 1.5 tablespoons, and you can always increase this to taste, as well as the turmeric powder. So use as much as the biryani masala as you like. Once it's mixed through, you can sort of gauge the color and the flavor and add more if you need to. To this, add the sea salt crystals as well as the chopped tomatoes. Add the tomatoes, stir and cook until they've softened a little bit. And a pro tip is to always add the tomatoes after the chicken has fried up a bit in the masala like this. If you add the tomatoes before adding the raw chicken, the chicken tends to be toughened up a bit. Now add the fresh mint and coriander leaves that have been roughly chopped. And only use the freshest mint and coriander leaves when making a biryani. There's no two ways about it. If your herbs are not fresh, don't use them when making the biryani. Next, we're going to add the thick-set yogurt, and you want to stir really briskly and quickly to incorporate the yogurt into that hot masala before the yogurt curdles. And then do a taste test and add more salt if needed. And at this stage, we're going to add the juice of that fresh lime. Only use freshly squeezed lime juice and make sure there are no seeds in there to prevent any bitter taste to the masala. Cover and cook for about 10 minutes on low heat for about 10 minutes till the chicken is tender. This is sufficient for broiler chicken. If you're using country fowl, you might need to cook longer and add a little bit more water. Once the chicken is tender, add 2 tablespoons of clarified butter or ghee and give it a good stir through. This adds a wonderful aroma to the masala and also tenderizes the chicken further. Cook for an additional 5 minutes covered. So once you've checked to see that the chicken is nice and tender, remove the pieces gently from the simmering gravy, and then we're going to cook down the gravy till it thickens a bit more. You don't want to cook along with the chicken pieces to wait for the chicken gravy to thicken to prevent the chicken pieces from breaking up in the masala. Make sure to do this on a medium heat and keep stirring to prevent the masala from getting scorched on the bottom of the pot. Be very careful there. And once the gravy looks right and is thickened to your liking, add about 2 tablespoons of thickened coconut cream. Adding that little touch of coconut cream not only enhances the flavor but also the aroma of the chicken masala, and it's one of my pro tips for enhancing this Thalassery chicken biryani masala. Now we can return the chicken pieces and gently toss the chicken once more in the thickened gravy. You can see how tender the chicken pieces are at this stage and they haven't broken up in the masala. Remove from heat, cover and allow to cool off. Once the masala has cooled off, we're going to add that crushed bista that we prepared earlier. Mix this in to the masala. Set aside the masala and now we can cook the rice for the biryani. For kaima rice, you just have to rinse it really thoroughly until the water runs clear. You have to do this several times. I like to scrub the rice with a little bit of salt in the beginning. This helps to remove any impurities. And you keep rinsing until the water runs clear. You don't need to soak kaima rice unlike basmati. If you're using basmati, you can soak it for up to half an hour. So once we've rinsed the rice, we're just going to drain this and keep this drained for about 10 minutes. Use a heavy based pot to cook the rice. Add 6 1/4 cups of water and bring to a boil covered. Make sure you have a nice tight lid. Add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of ghee once the water comes to a boil, as well as the drained rice. Bring back to a simmer, and we can add our whole spices: 3 small sticks of cinnamon, 12 cloves, 6 cardamom pods, 1 segment of star anise, and a pinch of fennel seeds. Give that a stir and add salt. We're adding 3 teaspoons of salt. Cover and cook on low with a tight fitting lid, opening and stirring only once or twice in between. You don't want to open regularly. As soon as the water has run dry, immediately fluff up the rice from the bottom of the pot with a fork. Do this gently, tossing the rice gently from the bottom of the pot. This is to allow any excess steam to escape so that your rice doesn't become overcooked with that trapped steam. You might even place this in a well-ventilated area or under a ceiling fan to help the steam to escape quicker. So our rice was not 100% cooked, it's only around 75% cooked. And next we're going to layer it with the cooked chicken masala in a process known as the Dum Cooking Method, which is a sealed method of cooking for biryani that allows no steam to escape. So while that steam builds and pressurizes within the pot, it's not allowed to escape. And that steam is going to finish cooking off that rice to perfection while permeating the fragrance of the masala throughout the rice. So for this dum method of biryani cooking, you will need a pot large enough to hold both the rice and the masala and enough room for some steam to develop as well. So the pot needs to be heavy based with a tight fitting lid. Lightly grease the bottom and then add all the chicken masala. Another pro tip is to keep the masala from touching the sides of the dum pot so that later when we're mixing the rice and the chicken together, we don't break the pieces of chicken. We can simply scoop from the sides of the pot. Sprinkle some chopped coriander leaves over the chicken masala layer. Add 3/4 of the fluffed up rice over the masala, making sure that the rice is thoroughly fluffed up to begin with. Make sure there are no little lumps of rice when you're adding the rice to the dum pot. Each grain of rice must be separate. After the rice has been added, gently press or pat down the surface of the rice layer. To add a little bit of color and scent to that biryani rice, we're going to be mixing the rose water along with turmeric powder. This is going to be drizzled over the rice. Along with this, we're also going to be adding a little bit more of fresh ghee over that rice layer, along with some of those fried onions for the garnish, a little bit of chopped fresh coriander, as well as a sprinkling of the biryani masala spice mix. Next, add the remaining portion of rice and spread it over, and you can add a little bit more of those garnish ingredients once again: the onion, the coriander, and the spice powder. Personally, I like to set aside a little bit of the white rice side so that when you're serving, you can sprinkle a little bit of that white rice over each plate and it looks nice. Next, we're going to seal that lid to the pot. For this, we have some dough. Place the lid upside down on the pot, and then we've prepared some dough here with just some plain flour or wheat flour. Roll it into a thick rope of dough and then press it on to the lid, and then turn it back right side up and press it onto the pot. Make sure there are no holes or gaps. Press it down so that no steam can escape. We use an old thick based pan to place the pot on top. You're going to preheat this by placing it on the stove on high heat for a couple of minutes till it's nice and piping hot, and then we're going to place the dum pot onto this pan. This indirect method of cooking ensures that the chicken masala will not get burnt onto the bottom of the pot. Cook on this indirect heat for about 10 to 15 minutes. You can place a weight on top to weigh it down. As the steam develops and the biryani is cooked, you'll notice that the dough on top begins to get hard and seals the lid completely. Now, after cooking, you really want to rest this for a while, at least 10 minutes up to half an hour if time permits. This allows those flavors to really develop and the rice to be super fragrant and tasty. So when it's ready, or when you've run out of patience, you can pry open the lid by cracking that layer of dough with a spatula or a knife, and the divine aroma of biryani that hits you. It's a smell like nothing else in the world. It's so delicious, and I wish you could smell it. Fluff up the rice on top without touching the chicken masala at first. Remove this rice to another wide-mouthed pot or a serving dish, and then scoop out the chicken masala and place on the other side of the rice. That is how the Thalassery biryani is usually served. Or for individual plates, you can serve the masala in the center and then add rice in desired proportions and mold the chicken with the rice like this, and then add some garnish, some fried onions, the cashew nuts, and the raisins or sultanas. I always like to top with a little bit of that reserved plain white rice on the top. This is for better presentation. And your authentic, delicious Thalassery biryani is ready to be served. This is usually served with an onion, tomato, and yogurt salad known as raita, or a biryani chutney made of mint and coriander leaves with grated coconut, as well as papads and homemade pickles. I hope you enjoyed this traditional recipe video. Thank you so much for watching. All the details on this recipe and related recipes are available in the link down in the description. See you next time, guys. Bye.